Hi guys, welcome back to another video, or your first video here, I don't know. Welcome if you're new here, welcome either way. This video is going to be my haul and unhaul for December. So I'm going to go through all of the books that I was given and all the books I'm getting rid of. Some of these I bought on my own, some of them I am replacing. Let's get into it with two books that I both bought and I'm getting rid of in December. So that is these two funny little books. So that is a guinea pig Nutcracker and a guinea pig Oliver Twist. So if you're not aware of this series of little books, it is where these famous classics are told using photographs of guinea pigs in little costumes, and they are both very sweet. They're a lot of fun. My sister read them as well and she enjoyed them. They literally took like 10 minutes or something, but they weren't like particularly impactful. I don't see myself rereading them at any point in the future. So yeah, I am getting rid of these. So now for a book where I am replacing the copy rather than getting rid of it, and that is Laini Taylor's Muse of Nightmares. So this is the second book in the duology of, what is the first book? Stranger Dreamer. So this is a beautiful copy and there is nothing wrong with this. It's got lovely sprayed edges. However, it is just this extra large hardcover, which I know that I very rarely pick up because they're just clunky to read. And so when I saw a paperback version, I decided to pick that one up instead. Not that the width is all that different, but I'm far more likely to read it in this version. This is the version I prefer, so this will be leaving my shelf. Next we have two books that I'm getting rid of because I started reading the first one and it didn't work for me. So we have The Last Girl Standing and The Last Girl Standing The Beginning. So these two are slasher novels that I bought in Plymouth. There was a sort of alternative fair. I like to support local people and local businesses, local authors. And unfortunately these didn't work for me. One, slashers aren't my go-to genre, so know that going in about my opinion if slashers are your thing. But the main thing for me was that the main characters are teenage girls and they didn't really feel like authentic teenage girls. I think they were made intentionally quite vapid for the style of the story. However, if I'm going to go out of my way to read a slasher novel, I want it to have a little bit more depth to it, but maybe that's just me going in with the wrong expectations of it. I picked this up because the author said that there were queer characters in here, so if these seem like your sort of thing, then absolutely go ahead and try them, but they'll be leaving my shelves. Now I believe we are just onto the haul books. And actually something I'm quite impressed by is that very few of my haul books I haven't read yet. Most of these I have read, so I will start with ones I haven't. First of all, we have Circe and the Cyclops by Homer. So this is one of the Penguin Little Black Classics editions, so really tiny. And this is number 70 if you are into collecting these things. I'm not looking at collecting all of these editions. I'm just picking up ones that I actively want to read or have read and really enjoyed. I'm a big fan of Greek mythology. I really like retellings, but also I like to see where a lot of the stories came from. So I'm interested to see about Circe and the Cyclops. And then for Christmas, I got given Middlemarch by George Eliot. What's her actual name? I can't remember. Because this was a pen name because she was publishing at a time where women weren't allowed to be publishers, really. So this is just a beautiful edition of this classic. It's one of the Barnes & Noble leather-bound editions. My sister found this for me at her local bookshop, which I'm very excited to go with her and check out. She gave this one to me for Christmas, so I'm excited to read it. Don't know when I'm going to get around to it, but with such a beautiful copy, how could I not? And so apart from that, every other book that I hauled in the month of December, I have already read. So let's get started with Sadie by Courtney Summers. This is a young adult thriller, mystery thriller that just swept booktube the year that it was released. When was it released? So that I'm not telling porkies. 2018. So, oh, right. It's a different day. So, where was I? I can't remember how much I explained of this. This is a young adult mystery thriller that got a lot of hype the year it came out and in the years subsequently, and I just completely got the hype. It is so good. It follows Sadie, who is trying to catch the man who murdered her sister. She knows what happens. The police aren't doing anything, and she is going to get revenge. And alternatively, we are following a man running a true crime podcast, and he is sort of trying to find out where Sadie is in real time. I would highly recommend this, and I'm glad I now own a copy. Next we have Believe Me by Eddie Izzard. I know that she changed her name fairly recently. I think Susie is the name that she chose. Anyway, she is a comedian and actor and does a whole lot of things for charity, so we decided to read her memoir, or at least one of her memoirs. I'm assuming she's come out with multiple, for a book club, and this was really good. I think that the audiobook worked a lot better for me because of the fact that the cadence of the writing is very true to the way that she speaks and that she does her comedy. So if this is something that you tried because you are a fan of Eddie Izzard, then I would, but didn't get along with the writing, I would try it on audiobook. Also, there is a little bit of extra content in the audiobook as well, because as she was writing it, she wrote things and then had footnotes, which are essential to the text as you are reading them. They're not sort of like extra little bits, just because I think that it's very reflective of the tangential way that she performs her comedy. But also then, when she then came to record the audiobook, then if things popped into her mind as she was talking about the footnotes, she would add a footnote to the footnote in the audiobook version. So I would recommend that, but I'm happy I own a copy of this. Next we have some poetry, and we have The Mermaid's Voice Returns in this one and The Witch Doesn't Burn in this one, both by Amanda Lovelace. So these are sequels to The Princess Saves Herself in this one. I really like Amanda Lovelace's poetry. I don't see these poetry collections working for someone who really likes the types of poetry where you have to really dive deep into it to understand it. I personally like poetry which flows well. It doesn't just go over my head, really, and this very much embodies that. I think that this one and the first book I would give the highest ratings. This one is slightly lower. I just enjoyed it slightly less, but I would really recommend it. It's a lot about being a woman and recovering from trauma and saving yourself and relationships. The way that I would describe the style of this poetry is that it's very pared down. I think that it's almost like each poem encapsulates a story and everything sort of superlative has been washed away and you're just left with the parts that give the biggest punch. That's in my opinion, but yeah, I like these and I'm happy to have more on my shelves. Next we have two companion novels to Shadow and Bone, that's it. So these are two short story collections that take place in this world. So The Lives of Saints, how to describe it? It's sort of set up as a book of religious parables or teachings that the characters or people in this world might believe in, and I really loved it. There are some of the stories that feature characters that were in that original trilogy. It was so interesting to see how we know what actually happened by reading the books and how if those stories were passed down, they would have been changed and they turn into legends where we can now see how other people would have interpreted those events. And I thought that was really fascinating. I really love Leigh Bardugo's short story style, and I'm really excited to continue reading other works by her. Another one being this. So this is not so much set in the world, but again being the sort of stories that would be told by characters in the world. So these are like a book of fairy tales that would, say, be told to children. I think they're the right level of dark and sinister while also telling morals. And I just think this was so wonderful. I gave this a 5-star because I really liked and enjoyed the Smoke and Bone trilogy, but I think that my reading tastes have changed a lot since they were at their height of popularity. But I do think that a lot of the stuff that Leigh Bardugo has been coming out since that original trilogy is going to really work for me, and this was definitely a very big indicator of that. Next we have, so this is a bind up edition of a trilogy, so it's the Lake Lovelace collection by Vanessa North, and I can't quite remember what the names of each of the books are. So we have Double Up, Rough Road, and Roller Girl. I'm not normally a romance reader. I like romances. That is a plot point that I tend to enjoy when it's done well, but that is when a romance occurs in a different genre. I very rarely pick up a romance that is just straight a romance, and if I do, then it's even rarer that I really love it, and this was one of those cases for me. Okay, so anyone else who has the app Scribd or Scribed, although it's changed its name now, it's now Everand. I know that this was being touted as a really good alternative to Audible a little while back, but anyone else who has Everand will know that this occurs. They say that it's unlimited listening and reading, but they do have a cutoff point. So if you read a lot a month, things that are in your library start going under, I don't know how they describe it, but it sort of goes missing and it goes into this sort of like hidden folder, and it's like this will go back into your saved once it's the end of the month. And I think that they must like have a pricing system that we aren't privy to as users of the app, and once you read over a certain amount up to a threshold, then like the most expensive books on your to read go into that private folder, then the cheaper and cheaper books as you continue to read. That's a tangent. I had read a bunch of things on Scribd that month, and so the only things that were available is what I think would be some of the cheapest stuff that was maybe lower down on my to get to list, and I literally just picked up this trilogy because it was labelled as gay, and I was so pleasantly surprised. So these 3 stories follow a friendship group, and each of them follows a new relationship that each one is getting into, and I just thought that it was such a perfect balance of romance and harder topics, of the plot in their lives, while also being very sex positive, very inclusive. One of the characters is trans, some of them are gay, some of them are bi or pan, I can't remember what labels they actually use. There's discussion of sadomasochism, there's discussion of coming to terms with an old injury that changes what you can and can't do. Each of these relationships were so healthy and well done, and I really cared for each of the characters. I think that each story stood on its own, but also built upon the one that came before it. And yes, I also decided that this cover personally just trumps the other versions that I saw for each individual book, so I had to get the collector's edition. And yes, if you're I was about to say if you're a romance reader, definitely pick this up, but because I'm not typically a romance reader and I really liked this, Does that mean that typical romance readers aren't going to enjoy it? I don't know. I'd really love to hear that. If you are or aren't a romance reader and you do try this out, do let me know how this goes for you, because I'd love to know which way you fall. Okay, a complete switch up in tone, and I have Gay Liberation Front Manifesto from 1971. So, as I said, written by the Gay Liberation Front, but it was released as part of the Reclaim Pride collective. So, essentially, this was a piece of work that was written by the Gay Liberation Front in order to try and spread awareness and get people talking about and caring about LGBT issues. And it's very short. It's got some pictures in there, it's got some history, it's got some information about the Reclaim Pride collective. And honestly, in a way, it was a very sad reading experience, finding out how little progress has truly been made and the sorts of things that people were trying to fight for in 1971. That I think that a lot of people, when thinking about gay issues, sort of want to take a step back because they're like, oh, well, we got all the rights that we were fighting for, and we really haven't. I think that it gave me a lot of perspective about the history of LGBT activism, and yeah, I would definitely recommend for anyone who is interested in the topic. We are changing backwards and forwards with the tone in this haul. So next we have an entire series, and that is, does the series have a name? Yes, The Will Darling Adventures. So let me just rearrange them. So the first book is at the front. So we have Slippery Creatures, we have The Sugared Game, and we have Subtle Blood. So these are all by KJ Charles. Did I haul a book from them earlier in this haul? I can't remember. If I did, then I'll just cut out this explanation. But KJ Charles has become a firm favourite of mine author-wise. Everything that they write just works for me. So there's been a sort of new wave of historical fiction which focuses far more on the hijinks and the sort of fun. No, I'm not going to go with fun, I'm going to go with hijinks and the relationships than the sort of dry, fact-driven historical fiction. And I think that KJ Charles is just such a master of that niche. In here, we are following the aftermath of World War... Which one had the trenches? One? I am not a humongous history buff. So I think, yeah, aftermath of World War One, where loads of people who were really important, had really important roles in the army, who had lost a lot of their friends, gone through a lot of trauma, were just dumped back in the UK and were really given no help in terms of coping mechanisms or getting back into normal life. So Will Darling is one of, I'm not going to hold up all three. Will Darling is one of these people, and he ends up running a bookshop, and suddenly a bunch of people start storming into his bookshop demanding that he give over a thing. He doesn't know what it is, and because he has no idea what it is and he's getting threats, he decides to find out what it is. And one of these people that he meets is Kim Secretan, who is a very rich, noble person, and they don't seem like the sort of pair that would get along, but they start to form a friendship. But there's a lot of secrets, a lot of things going on that neither of them are really privy to. Each book in this series feels so complete, while they all really well complete an overarching arc. The relationship formed here, both of these characters are really struggling, and there's secrets and lies and difficulties with class, difficulties with commitment, difficulties with recovering from this war that has swept the nation, and just, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's raining quite heavily now. And like, I just love this series so much, and I'm so glad to finally have copies that I can put on my shelves. Next we have another little black classic, for those of you who are interested in that. It is number 31, and it is The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. So most people know Edgar Allan Poe from The Raven, or from the numerous memes that he has become a part of, but The Telltale Heart is my personal favourite, and so I wanted a copy, and now I have one. Oh, it's about a man who commits a... Wait, there's no synopsis or anything, so I don't know what would be a spoiler. Also, this is so old now, I don't know. Would I be... Anyway, it is about... It's about a man who commits a murder and who's being sort of haunted or driven mad by the man who he murdered. Only a few left, I promise. Next, we have A Short History of Queer Women by Kirsty Law. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing this. This really does what it says on the tin. It's a short history of queer women. I really enjoyed this as it gave me information about women who I hadn't heard of or knew they were queer. I think that a lot of books like this, or people who talk about this topic, often recycle the same few people, so I liked the fact that I'd been given new information. I also really liked the writing style. It was very snarky. I think that I could definitely see this writing style just not working for someone. I also think that if this book had been a lot longer, I think the writing style would have grated on me. And I think that it was just the perfect length for the sort of tongue-in-cheek, snarky style of it. Yeah, I would highly recommend. Next, we have Into the Riverlands by Nhi Vo. So this is book number 3? Why do books never say what number they are on the spine anymore? Okay, there are 2 on the back, so I'm assuming this is book number 3 in the Singing Hills cycle. In it, we follow a character called Chi, and they are a cleric. They collect stories, and they, in each story, interact with different characters and learn their stories, and also become more a part of the stories as they go through the series. In each book, it's almost like a metaphor for a different aspect of the importance of storytelling, or the way in which it happens. I don't want to go into too much detail because they are very, very short, but I guess I don't own a physical copy of the first 2, not because I didn't like them. I gave them all 5 stars, but this is the first one so far that's come out in hardcover, and I want them all to match, so I am going to wait till the previous 2 come out in hardcover. But yes, this is brilliant. And finally, I have The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. And so this has recently become a movie. I did not watch the movie, not because I don't think it was very good, I just don't watch TV or movies because I'm sad. So in here we are following a gay couple and their adopted daughter. They are staying at a cabin in the woods, and there's a group of very violent looking people that descend upon them and trap them in the cabin, and they say that they have to make a big decision about the end of the world. So this most certainly is not going to work for everyone. I know that it is an incredibly polarizing read, but I really loved this. I thought that the tension was just perfect, and the commentary on belief and coincidence, and you really got to see all the relationships in here. I just thought this was really tension-filled and really good. Honestly, the movie cover is not my favourite, but I saw this fairly cheaply and I decided to pick it up. So now I own that. So there you have it. Those are all the books that I got rid of / bought over the end of the year period last year. And I would love to hear about a book that you bought / got rid of recently, and 2, again, if you're a romance reader or not, I would love to hear about whether or not you have read that and how it works for you. And I will see you in my next video. Bye.